Hi guys! Welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new legal advice content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first one is titled, HOA will not allow me to decorate my home early, not even inside. I moved into my first house a few months ago. It's under a HOA, but I figured it'd be okay as long as I follow their rules. On November 1st, I put up my Christmas decorations on my house. Yes, I love Christmas and embrace the holidays as soon as Halloween is over. The very next day, at 8 a.m., a very angry woman was knocking on my door. As soon as I opened, she chewed my ear off about the decorations, and demanded I take them down because they are against HOA rules. After she left, I combed through the booklet of rules. This is not mentioned anywhere. On Friday, I went to the HOA meeting, and pointed this out to the council. They all basically told me to duck off and that I needed to take the decorations down, and I was free to put them back up on December 21st. They also told me that it had to be sensitive to all cultural identities. Another thing I was told was I was not allowed to even put decorations up inside my home, and I would be fined if I did so. It's ridiculous. Do they really have that much control of what I can or can't do on my own property? Even inside my home? Is there anything I can do legally about this? Again, there are no printed rules about this in their ridiculous handbook. Update. So the angry woman I mentioned earlier came by just a half hour ago to remind me to remove the decorations before Monday morning. One of my neighbors, I'll call her Jill, who had been gardening, joined in the conversation. Though Jill was much more pleasant to deal with, she basically confirmed that there was no actual rule about this in the handbook, but it was something that basically the entire neighborhood agreed with, and that I was basically crap out of luck if I wanted to change the rules. No Christmas decorations before December 21st, and even then, they have to be inclusive of all cultural identities. For example, snowflakes and snowmen are okay, but no Christmas trees or nativities or star designs. It really sucks, but it looks like I'm just outnumbered in this. My husband and I are going to go remove the decorations later in the day. The next one is titled, My neighbor's cat adopted me. I've tried to get rid of it. He won't go away. My neighbor is threatening to sue me, and so is my landlord. Washington. I have my own cat, and a pet door. My cat goes in and out as she pleases to use the litter box and to probably get into trouble. Lately my neighbor's cat, who's male, has invited himself inside via the cat door. He does it late at night, in the mornings, whenever. At first I'd shoo him out, but that made him come in when I was asleep to eat my cat food. Apparently my cat food is better than his. I've been woken up by him meowing, and he often sprays my walls, leaving a horrible stink. I've tried spraying this thing with the hose, yelling at him, gently, throwing him back over the fence, getting those things that are supposed to scare off cats with sound, locking the pet door. He meows at my door in that case, and nothing works. He now pretty much lives in my yard 24/7. I've given up getting rid of him. He runs in when I open my door, the garage door, whatever. And then hides so I can't find him to toss him back out. Now, my lease says I can have one cat. Which I do. Now comes the problem. My landlord came over for an inspection, which I was aware of. The problem is my neighbor's cat came running in while he was there and sprayed the wall, jumped on my counter and began eating my lunch. So it looked like I owned two cats. My landlord asked if it was mine, which I replied it was my neighbor's. He says another neighbor has complained that the cat is over at their house every day spraying, and they've seen it come to my house, so it must be mine. He's now fining me and telling me to get rid of the cat as he's ruining the walls. My neighbor is also unhappy with this, because she doesn't see her cat much. I've personally walked him over to her door, handed him to her, and see her toss it right back out after I leave. She's now threatening to sue me for stealing her property. She doesn't want to keep him inside because he meows, and whenever she lets him out he's right back in my yard. She's also mad because he's gotten fat on my cat food. No matter where I hide it, the cat gets into the bag for lunch in the middle of the night. She's saying I've damaged her property. Can my landlord/neighbor actually fine or sue me for a cat that I have tried to get rid of? How do I respond? I'm going to see if I can find a few neighbors to sign papers saying she owns the cat, so I'm not too worried about my landlord, but my neighbor? Help. My neighbor's cat won't go home. Few more things to add. I like this cat. He's a sweetie. sprays everywhere, but he's a real gentleman when he visits otherwise. 1. I'm getting married and we're buying a house in a few months. Could I get in serious trouble if the cat tries to visit whoever moves into this house? 2. Could I in theory take the cat? I wouldn't, honest. 1 is enough for me. But if I wanted to, could I and just let her sue me for the cost of said cat? He's not fixed, no shots, and I doubt he's microchipped. 3. She doesn't seem to care about him too much. It's more, oh, he was a cute kitten but now he's not situation. She's a bit of a nutter, dislikes me ever since my tree fell over into her yard. He's scruffy looking and has a nice share of matted fur that I've been slowly brushing out. 4. Can I actually be sued for damaging her property for getting it fat? 5. Can the landlord withhold my deposit for any damage he causes? My cat is female and spayed, so it's not like she sprays walls. Edit. Apparently people have problems with my sense of smell. I grew up with horses and 6 male cats to catch mice. I'm sure my sense of smell is shot. Also, vinegar and orange cleaner get the smell out in a jiffy if it's not been there too long. Seriously, try it. I'm sure this sounds more extreme than it is. Seriously? Legal advice best of? Not worthy. I was tired when I wrote it, so I'm sure it's a jumble. It's more of a this lady is a nutter, am I actually going to get served? Than a serious worry. More for my curiosity than anything. Edit again. I'm glad you guys enjoy my problem so much. It really makes me smile. But legally, can she sue me for damaging her property and stealing her property? Can I sue her for damages to my house should my landlord withhold my pet deposit? Or fine me for having the cat around? What about all the money I've spent trying to get rid of the thing? I asked my landlord. Installing a special pet door is out of the question. He won't allow it, and the cat sneaks in other ways. I once left a window cracked half an inch. He pushed it open and let himself in. I did get a neighbor to sign a letter saying it's not my cat. My landlord accepts that, but now thinks I'm encouraging it and need to solve the problem. After 6 months and $500 I've tried to get rid of it. I may end up calling the shelter. Update. My crazy neighbor lady served me with court papers, filed herself claiming I destroyed her property by making her cat fat, and stole it by having him adopt me. I tripled my efforts to get rid of him, and until he spent his nights meowing at my porch and upsetting my other neighbors. My landlord has now served me fines for A, noise, and B, damage caused by cat. Because he comes into my house, despite admitting that I don't own the cat. I didn't get much in the way of legal advice last time, so hoping for advice. Can my landlord fine me for damages caused by a cat I do not own? Can I sue her for the damages? Edit. Guys, I've tried to get rid of Kitty. You seem to think that I go out feeding it every day. I haven't done that for months. I used to because I felt awful for it, but once he got old enough to spray out he went. I know everyone thinks a water gun will solve the issue, but I am being sued. This is legal advice, not cat advice. I just want to know if I can get the fines lifted from my landlord, and if her suing me based on fattening up her cat, and now making it skinny because I don't feed it, has merit, and if I should lawyer up. In terms of things I've tried, yelling at it, spraying it with the hose, getting little sound devices that blast air when it senses motion, hiding in my house and playing ninja to get out, locking my pet food up so my cat is unhappy, putting all the human food away, baby-proofing anything that he may get into, calling animal control, they're useless by the way. If cat isn't right there when they show up they won't do anything, talking to my neighbor, talking to her landlord, talking to my landlord, borrowing spray guns from my neighbors, locking my pet door, more yelling at him, etc. Final update. My dad got me an early wedding gift, a lawyer. Turns out those weren't legal papers my insane neighbor served me. I've just never dealt with anything legal at all and was an idiot. I think she can get in trouble for trying to pass them off as legal papers, but I don't care at this point. I'm done with her. I took everyone's advice and hauled off the kitty, to the tune of $25 each time, for 3 times. Neighbor went crazy, and showed up on my doorstep screaming about how I was going to pay her for getting Kitty out of jail and I was stealing her property again. And now I damaged it because the shelter made her get Kitty's shots, as well as being fixed. Luckily for me I had a recorder handy while she went off on this rant. She even approved to me recording, to get proof that I stole her cat. My lawyer took it to my landlord, and with a strongly worded letter he dropped the fees against me for having another cat. Kind of hard to ignore that it's her cat by that point. I did agree to leave behind my pet deposit when I move out for cleaning caused by him, though. My lawyer sent her a strongly worded letter to leave me alone or face harassment charges to my neighbor. She then showed up on my doorstep with said kitty and said I deserved him because I was a horrible person and he was ruined. I called my lawyer again, because A, I cannot have 2 cats in my house, and B, what if she claims I stole it? She screamed that she didn't want it. Whenever he tried to go home she'd yell and throw things at him. I have this recorded. In the end my lawyer ended up calling for a welfare check on her for being nutty. I'm not sure the outcome of that, and honestly don't care. She's gone quiet for now, and that's all I can ask for. I'm getting married in 2 weeks and will be out of this joint. As for the kitty, I felt horrible for him. Instead of calling for animal abuse he's now living with my father, who has a very small farm, goats. I still have my lawyer on retainer in case she decides to actually sue me over the cat, but who knows. Fingers crossed she'll leave me alone now. The last one is titled, Sellers Didn't Complete Agreed Upon Repairs Before We Took Possession of New Home. Cincinnati, Ohio. I recently purchased a home and I just had a few questions about issues that have come up after the fact regarding some repairs we asked to be made before the sale. In particular, we asked them to have a professional, specifically requested a professional, replace some of the cracked tile on the chimney that was discovered during the home inspection. The gentleman who lived there previously saw himself as a handyman. I can tell you that from observations of other work on our home that he was in fact, not a handyman by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it looks like he just went to Home Depot and got a new cover for the chimney and didn't replace the tiles as requested at all. We were unable to tell during our final walkthrough as they were still present and packing in well. It's kind of hard to check a chimney from the ground. The work we will now have to do is several $1,000s and we feel it should have been completed per the contract before we took possession of the home. We bought the home in March, so it has been some time. Am I Saul here? Do I have to go through small claims to try to get some money back? Any advice is greatly appreciated. Update. I'm back, cranky and armed to the teeth with a fire in my belly that won't let me let this go. As many of you suggested, I got a hold of my realtor and asked her for a copy of the contract and the invoices for the 3 items we had requested completed. As expected, she didn't have the invoices and had to ask the seller who, get this, was another realtor who worked out of the same office as my realtor. I knew at the time of purchase that the seller was a relator and her daughter was living in the house, but I had no idea they worked out of the same office. Anyway, I gathered as much information as I could before asking my relator to contact the selling realtor. As I mentioned, one of our gravest concerns was that the selling realtor would not have a professional complete these repairs, as the other repairs on the house were kinda garbage. Below is the exact verbiage from the contract. Cracking brick and missing mortar was noted on the right side of the chimney structure. Inspector suggests sealing to prevent moisture entry and further deterioration. Seller to have a chimney contractor evaluate the chimney to determine the best course of action and any associated costs. So, as we started to get the invoices from the selling realtor, it was apparent that she did not have one for the chimney repairs. She stalled initially for a week, and eventually I ended up getting a screenshot from my realtor of the contact information of the guy who did the work and that if I called him, for sure he would go over repairs completed. We'll call this individual Mike. The contact info provided was listed in her phone as Mike Chimney, and when I called the phone number, which was an out-of-state area code, it rang and eventually I got the default cell carrier message. You have called a number that is no longer in service. By this point I'm upset and fully ready to have my own guy do the work. Was quoted $995 to do it right, and I revealed to my realtor that the reason I needed this information is because the work was not done properly. I discussed with her again how disappointed I was that a professional was not hired per the contract. She was super apologetic and said she would get a hold of the seller relator and see what could be done. Well, get this, apparently Mike does work for a chimney repair company, but he works under the table on the weekends for the seller realtor. They refuse to give me his last name or the company he works for because they are afraid he'll be fired if they discover he's freelancing on the side. Obviously, this made me pretty upset, because when we put professional in the contract, I meant I wanted a licensed and insured company to make the repairs. My realtor explained that a lot of realtors have this kind of setup going because it's the same work for much less money. I reminded her that companies are more expensive because they have to pay for insurance and workers' comp and all of those other really nice things that make sure their work is traceable and that they're responsible for it, and that a dude moonlighting work on the weekends was not a professional in the capacity we had discussed and clearly did not complete the work well and in a professional manner, which seems to be directly at odds with what was written in the contract. She took this back to the selling realtor, who swears up and down she's never had an issue with Mike before and that he'll be right out to fix it. I tell them I don't want Mike back on my property as he is not insured to do what he's going to do, and I'll be damned if my home insurance premiums go up because this freelance jerk falls off my roof and makes a claim against my homeowner's insurance. My realtor tells me that, because we closed, there's not much more that can be done and that this is a generous offer because, technically, the selling realtor doesn't have to contribute anything after closing. So here are my follow-up legal questions. 1. Do I have any grounds to force their hand into paying for the company I want to use? They claim that because Mike does this for a living he is technically a professional and it's not in violation of the contract to have used him in the first place. 2. Do I have recourse against my relator? I trusted her to get those invoices and make sure the repairs were completed per the contract prior to closing, but she trusted the other realtor instead because they worked out of the same office and, in her words, as a rock star. I personally feel this was clearly not in my best interest and a terrible move on her part that I am now dealing with 4 months later. If she had followed up and gotten the invoices as requested, we wouldn't be in this situation now. 3. Who is the regulatory board for realtors in Ohio, and even if nothing comes of this, would it be worth reporting both my relator and the selling realtor to the licensing agency for bad practices? Further on the BS vein is that they are constantly trying to paint me in the wrong, stating things like it's been 6 months since you bought the house, it has only been 4, and that the damage to the mortar could have occurred between the sale and today. It's clearly old as heck, and it's also pictured in the home inspection documents in its current state, which is why we wanted it replaced. I don't really want to do small claims, but I want to see some action here. I want these people to know that taking advantage of first-time home buyers is not okay, and I want them to remember this lesson and not try to pull a fast one on anyone else who trusts their realtor. Also, how much trouble will I be in if I find the company Mike works for and report that he's using their tools and equipment on the weekend to freelance? Final update. Well, it's not an exciting update, but it is mildly satisfying. To make a long story short, my realtor is paying for all of the requested repairs out of her pocket. I think she knows how badly she messed up here and that, even though it would not be a slam dunk small claims case, it wasn't worth the trouble to force me to go that route. I think she could tell that I am an insatiable busybody, and not only would I never let her rest in small claims, I would report her to the OHHIO Real Estate Licensing Board as well. At this point I don't have plans to report her. She's definitely trying to play the pity me I'm paying out of pocket card, but I have no problem reminding her that 1. She's the reason we're in this situation. 2. She made over $9,000 in commission from the sale of my home, and 3. She knows she missed that super important dual agency agreement form and that I know that she knows. She's mostly kept in line since I laid the smackdown on her last time. She didn't like my estimate, so she sent her own guys who proceeded to quote more than my guys did. I'm sure that was frustrating for her. I never heard back from the principal broker, so I'm sure she knows what's up and is avoiding me intentionally. I haven't decided if I want to file a complaint against her and/or the selling agent yet. In my mind, the issue is resolved. I'll never use this office or my agent again, and I won't recommend her to anyone, and I'll be 10,000 times more annoying to my realtor next time I purchase a home. I'm ready to put this to bed. If anything else crops up, I may consider reporting, but for now, the beast slumbers. Oh, and for the person who delightfully told me to grow up and pay for it myself, that was very helpful, thanks for the feedback. I went a different and better route, but you do you, boo. Thanks for listening.